Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Welcome back to another episode of The Shrimp Tank. We come to you virtually from Seattle and the entire Pacific Northwest. Heck, once in a while, we even go up and down I-5 all the way to California. Listen, if you want to learn how to start, grow, or run a successful business, you're in the right place. This is the podcast for you. It's where we say street smarts and book smarts collide. Hello again, everyone. I'm Dan Weedin, and I'm joined by my co-host, the incomparable Michelle Bomberger. I think it's been a while since we've been on together, so I'm excited to talk to her. I'm also excited to talk to our guest today, Danielle Johnson. Danielle is the dynamic entrepreneur and founder of Cannon Leadership Group, an esteemed executive coach and mentor with over 2 decades of experience in tech, retail, and finance. She's known for a relationship-centric approach. Cannon Leadership Group pushes clients beyond their comfort zones, resulting in life-changing transformations. Trust and impact form the foundation of their stellar reputation, with clients praising their journeys together as truly transformative. We're so excited to have Danielle on the show and share her entrepreneurial experiences. Welcome, Danielle. We'll be with you in just a minute. Everyone, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. We're on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and YouTube. You might say we're ubiquitous. And now, open for business, our patron membership, The Shrimp Peelers, offering exclusive content to grow your business and enrich your life. You'll find access on our website at shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle. Now, before we bring on Danielle, Michelle, it feels like it's been forever.
It does. I think we swapped out one of the weeks a couple months ago, maybe, and things got a little bit out of whack.
We went back-to-back weeks, and I think that was like at June and July, or anyway, I know it's still July, but it seems like forever. Good to see you again. Hey, people may not know outside of the Seattle area, but it was a big weekend last week. Taylor Swift came to town. I think you probably heard about that, didn't you?
Yeah, I think a lot of cities have experienced what we experienced last weekend.
I saw people, family and friends, just doing anything they could to get tickets, and the tickets prices were unbelievable. I'm not a Swiftie. I like Taylor Swift. I respect what she does. It reminded me, and it was funny because I looked it up. It was 10 years ago, almost to the day, Michelle. Barb and I went to see, I would say, kind of my generation's version of Taylor Swift. I felt like I saw the Beatles. I saw Paul McCartney at Safeco Field. We got really nice second level seats. It was great. In fact, I went back and I started watching some of the videos. I probably haven't watched in 10 years, but it was remarkable. I'm sure Taylor Swift and definitely Paul McCartney are considered rock stars. We throw around that praise to people who aren't even musicians. Hey, Michelle's a rock star. Craig's a rock star. I don't know if anybody's saying Dan's a rock star, but they should. Anyway, Paul McCartney, probably the rock star to me in any field. You got to have a rock star, don't you, Michelle?
Dan, you're a rock star. Well, make sure you got that one today. No, it's funny because I had the fortunate or unfortunate opportunity to be right down at Lumen Field about 9:00 p.m. on Sunday evening, picking my son up from the train station, and rolled down the window, heard a little bit of her talking. But by the way, not only ticket prices, if you've ever parked outside the Mariners Stadium, $90 for parking. Anyway, but my son and I were talking a bit about types of concerts, and he's 19. So his style of concerts and maybe my style of concerts are a little different at this stage. But the difference between the ones where you go and sit and listen, which is very strange for some of these, versus the ones where you're down in the small club, jumping up and down, screaming and yelling. And so one of my memories is Juan Luis Guerra y 440, which is a merengue band out of Latin America. When I was in college, they were playing at a theater in Chicago. And so you have a whole bunch of folks who love merengue sitting in a seated theater, trying to figure out how to manage that. So people are in the aisles, people are on the chairs, because no one's going to sit through that kind of a concert. But it was amazing to see them play, and I would love for them to come up here, but it's hard to get those kinds of groups up here because of the
Oh,
audience.
I'd love if they do. Let me know.
I will.
We have a rock star as a guest today. There's no doubt about it. I've got a chance to talk a little bit and meet Danielle Johnson. Danielle, I'm going to bring you into this conversation. My understanding and reading everything about you and having Michelle share who you are, you're a rock star for female CEOs and female business leaders. We're going to talk about that. But I got to ask, there's got to be a rock star in your world. Let us know who that is, and then tell us a little bit about what you do.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I have to say, my rock stars, I have been absolutely blessed throughout my life to have just a team of mentors, kind of in every stage of my life that I can think back. In those impactful moments, there was always someone there who was helping me out, sharing wisdom, sometimes sharing what not to do. But I am so grateful for that. And definitely those would be my rock stars kind of now and also in the past.
So share with us a little bit about what your business is, what you do,
Sure.
who you work with.
Wonderful. So as you mentioned, I am the founder of Canon Leadership. And what we do is executive coaching, typically with founders, rapidly scaling tech, and as you mentioned, entrepreneurs, not all female, but definitely a majority of my clients in that entrepreneurial space are females. And, we're working one-on-one with, either founders and their teams, but also really helping get clear on what type of culture they're trying to build. So anything from providing training on leadership development to really just getting clear on what is that culture you're trying to build.
So thanks. And I won't get into my personal experience with the amazing questions that Danielle asks to prompt that transformation, because I do think that is one of your superpowers, I would say. But how did you get here? What was your journey to this role and to be so amazing at it?
I feel like it found me. If I look back, I've always, from the time I was 16, my first job was at Starbucks. And, within 6 months, I was a shift supervisor. That was a very, very long time ago. But I just remember how much, even then, I loved leading people. And it was much more like where I would get that excitement and that passion is when you can see someone really want for something and strive for something and then achieve those goals. And so I think that is probably the early years. And then, throughout my career, I had always had teams of people. And then one of my, as I mentioned, extremely important mentors got me into coaching in 2015 when I started my coaching certification in Vancouver, Canada, actually. And it was kind of love at first sight when I was definitely nervous, but going into that certification the first day, like I just knew I was in the right place. I knew this were my people. And then, it's kind of grown from there. So I worked with a business partner up until 2020, and then I started my own. Interesting time to start a business, but it worked out. So that's kind of the high level of my journey. And I've just been really blessed to attract really amazing clients and just feel really grateful for what I get to do every day.
So we're going to talk about that timing a little bit later, because that was interesting timing. And I do want to dig into that a little bit deeper. But I want to ask you this, Danielle. The leadership consulting, we'll put that all together in one box. The leadership consulting, advisory, coaching, that industry is about as crowded as a Taylor Swift concert, is my guess. There's I see people all over. We've had other guests on. How do you work from an entrepreneurial and marketing standpoint to differentiate yourself in such a crowded space?
Yes, there are a lot of coaches. I think, for me, I don't even like to say this out loud, knock on wood, I have not ever marketed or kind of promoted myself, and all of my business has come through word of mouth. And so I think why I think that happens is anybody can be a coach. And I think there's a lot of great coaches that maybe haven't gone through coaching certification. For me, it was really important to both go through a couple different programs of coaching certification, but then also, be certified through the ICF, International Coaching Federation, because I think it's not about the credential, but it is about being able to say, I have the right training, because I think you can cause as much harm as you can cause good as a coach sometimes, if you're not really attuned to what we're trying to do here. And so I do think that that's what has set me apart. But also I feel like I was born with a lot of empathy, and that's really helpful in the coaching space, both to help people feel like they have a space to explore the things that are maybe a little bit scarier, but also I think I can push people in a way that is a little tough, but there's never a doubt that there's an agreement that what we both want, and that it's out of really wanting to help that client get the best result.
Yeah, you've mentioned a couple of things that I think can be maybe confusing. You mentioned how you had great mentors in your
Mhm.
career. And then we've talked a little about, what coaching is. And then it kind of, almost blends into therapy. Where are those lines, and how do you kind of navigate some of those lines?
Yeah, I have been called a work therapist more than once, for sure. I think, we are whole people. I don't think that we're one person at work and we're one person at home. So there are, you know, from that first meeting that I'm meeting with a potential client, we're really exploring, what is your ideal outcome here? What do you want? And that is with your business, but it has a lot to do with what impact you're trying to make in the world, what lights you up. And that's very personal. And so I think if I was to really succinctly differentiate the, coaching versus therapy, therapy's backward looking a lot of times. And it's, really talking about your past and digging into where some things would have happened. And I know I'm oversimplifying. Coaching is about your future. And it's about like, what is your inspired future? How do you blow your own mind? Like, what are those things that you're really wanting? And then it's a co-creation of how do we get there? Does that answer your question? Is that helpful? Good.
I'm actually going to tell you, that just blew me away. I know you said it was simple, but simple, as you know, is often the best the best method. I don't know that I've ever heard anyone say something, and compare and contrast that therapy is looking backwards into the past and coaching is looking into the future. Like how do we go about doing this? You just stunned me. In fact, you stunned me so much. I lost my question. We're gonna have to go to break because I do have a question coming out of break, and we're going to do that. We're going to take a short break to hear from today's spotlight sponsor. And when we come back with our guest, Danielle Johnson, for our Hot or Not section of the show, we are going to talk about starting a business in the height of the pandemic, probably the beginning of the pandemic. You're going to want to hear that. So don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank. The power of law is often used against those who don't know what they don't know, but not anymore. Equinox levels the field for entrepreneurs. Just as your business may now tap into a managed service provider for accounting, HR, or IT help, you can now tap into the power of law with Equinox. Equinox's strategic legal counsel service gives your business the same strategic law advantages as the megacorps. But unlike the mega attorneys, Equinox brings a balance of strategic business and practical legal guidance. You set the priorities in the budget. The Equinox team builds a personalized plan at a fixed monthly cost to best serve your legal priorities and needs. Take on business complexities with the power of law on your team. Visit equinoxbusinesslaw.com. Schedule a complimentary, no obligation evaluation to see where your business stands. Level the playing field with Equinox Strategic Legal Counsel, and I'll P.S. they are rock stars.
Well, everybody, welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound area and beyond. I'm Michelle Bomberger here with Dan Weedin, and our fantastic rock star guest today is Danielle Johnson with Canon Leadership. Let's start our next segment, Hot or Not.
All right, Danielle, Hot or Not is where Michelle and I are going to pepper you with questions about business, about life. I don't know, maybe we'll even keep this rock star theme going and see if Taylor will sponsor our podcast. I won't hold my breath for that. At the end, you win absolutely nothing, but let's hope you have some fun with it. You mentioned it first. I had this as on my list as I did a little digging on you to see when you started your business. It looks like it was May of 2020, at least according to LinkedIn. And I remember May 2020 vividly. I think we all do. We were somewhere in 60 to 90 days into what was going to become a global pandemic that I don't think anybody, even in May, had any idea where it was going and what was going to happen. Share with us, what got you saying, I'm going to start a business, and what was going through your mind, and how did you do it?
Oh gosh. I just think back on that time and laugh because it was challenging time, I think, for everyone. A lot of what I was doing in my last firm was one-on-one coaching that followed up some live in-person training. And so, my wonderful business partner at the time, we just decided in May 2020 that current model wasn't working well, especially with a lot of the live training. And so I had a choice to make. I had a book of business, and I had clients that I had been working with for years that I wanted to retain. She was going to do some other things at that time. And so it was kind of a choice between either go find another firm to work for mid-pandemic or start my own. And it's something I've always wanted to do. Probably the timing wasn't optimal, but I just went for it. And I do feel very lucky. I already had a pretty established book of business at that point. But I also had a 12-year-old here doing homeschool, and it was filled with challenges, but I definitely wouldn't take it back.
Yeah, I would say of any time where folks really needed to kind of rely on those professionals
Sure.
around them, it probably wasn't a terrible time because people probably needed you really well.
For sure. Absolutely. And I love being of service. And I think that probably helped me. If we're not helping others, a lot of times we're thinking about what's going on like in the world and with us, and like just being able to feel like I was doing something that was helping people during that time, like that gave me a ton of energy. So it was kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah. So another one, hot or not, team coaching versus individual coaching.
I love team coaching, definitely hot. Why I love team coaching is if you can see a team attuned to their other team members' individual preferences and start to honor those in communication, in feedback, you just see a team that thrives. And so I love being a part of that. So it definitely depends on the team. But typically it's hot.
All right, hot or not, Danielle, raising a child as an entrepreneur.
Ooh, hot. Especially as a woman. I have a son that is 14 now, and I love him being able to see me run my own business and doing the things that I'm doing. And to be honest, like, he is my biggest fan. Like, he'll ask me, like, what are you doing today? Even, coming on here, he's like, you're going to kill it. Like, and that for me, just definitely hot.
All right, hot or not, women in entrepreneurship.
Oh, hot. I think that the more women that want that get into entrepreneurship, just the better. That is the world I want to live in.
So I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on kind of differences that you've seen in coaching women versus coaching men in the entrepreneurship world specifically.
That's a good question. Definitely. Can I just say yes? I definitely see a difference. And it's without at the risk of stereotyping, I think that I really enjoy working with men because I think that as women, typically we have maybe a bigger community or cohort of, friends, business professionals that we share struggle with. And I think when I think about the men entrepreneurs that I work with, they just might not have as big of a circle. And so I feel like it's so important. And once they feel like it's a safe place, it can just be so impactful because there's a lot of stuff that maybe they haven't been able to verbalize.
So, Michelle had asked you about team coaching, and you talked
Yeah.
a little bit about that. I think this would be a great time to maybe just kind of do a deep dive into all the different types of coaching that you do. You've talked about working individually with CEOs. You've talked about team coaching. Maybe kind of give us the website version that somebody listening or watching this will say, who exactly does she work with? What exactly does she do? Can you do a little bit of a deep dive on that for us?
Yeah, typically, it's kind of two scenarios. So if I'm working in a bigger organization, I'll typically come in with, a chief people officer, really assess like, okay, what are you looking to, who are the high performers or who are the people that you're wanting coaching in your organization? And we'll set it up that way. And then if it's more of, again, typical path, if it's more of the rapidly scaling, smaller kind of early stage startup, someone has recommended me to a founder because they're overwhelmed, they need help, and they're really looking to get clear. And then once I start working with that founder, depending on the needs, we do stakeholder interviews. So really getting a sense for, okay, what does this team think? What does this team want? And what does this team need? And then it typically will morph into working with one or two or more of that, that founder's direct report. So we can really get kind of current state and understand like what is happening. And then as, I'm working with that founder to get really clear on what do you want, we'll build the plan in between.
Share a little more about the stakeholder interviews. I
Sure.
found that to be fascinating. I think I've heard them like 360s before, but you're talk a little bit about, and maybe I'm misunderstanding, but share with us a little bit more about the stakeholder interviews and what you're trying to accomplish with those.
For sure. I think, what I notice is a lot of times founders started a company because they're really passionate about a service or thing or a product. But a lot of times they didn't start this company because they're really excited and passionate about leading people or, have ever done it before. And so there are some times when there's blind spots of what does this team need to be successful? How can I show up best as a leader for this team? And so what I'll do is we'll pick key people that we feel like will give a range of feedback on that leader, could be the organization, and I'll just interview them. I spend about 15 or 20 minutes with them and can get a wealth of knowledge. And then we'll compile that into kind of one big report and then figure out, okay, how does the information we just gained here align with your broader goals? And how does that data inform what we're, our plan and what we're trying to do here? So I think they're one of the more impactful things that I do in my coaching. And I definitely, not always easy. And so you're also gauging readiness of that leader to hear that information when you're doing them. But I think they're very impactful.
Yeah, it was one of the first questions I remember you asked me was about, do you want to lead this team? And I think that is a huge struggle for folks who haven't been in the leadership role or even the management role, and something that that I've seen over time, and with some help from folks like you, is the idea of what is the difference between the manager and the leader. Do you have kind of a few maybe tips for folks to kind of recognize some of those limitations or some of those opportunities for growth in their teams?
Yeah, I think I think one of the best things leaders can do is think about the things that they're not saying. And think about, are there places that you're holding back when it comes to giving your team feedback, giving your team kind of their roadmap to success in this organization? And sometimes there's a lot of fear there of, I don't want to hurt someone's feelings. They work so hard. I don't want to demotivate them. But I have this belief that people typically don't come to work and say, God, I really want to let my boss down today. I really want to let my clients down today. Like, people come to work wanting to do a great job. And I think it's our job as leaders to help them shine a light on that blind spot. And you don't have to do it alone. You can do it with, a coach or someone to come in and be that partner with you. But I think that's really, if you can have open, transparent, and genuine conversations in your organization that starts with you, I see that being so huge.
Yeah, it can be really tough. I think it can be really tough to kind of put that role, that title, that ego aside. I'm wondering if you have seen any significant differences since folks have gone remote or hybrid, and what kinds of ideas might you have to kind of help bridge some of those gaps, if there are any?
Yeah, I think it's been, I hear leaders all the time just say that it's not quite the same when their teams are remote. And what I've noticed is, if your team has always built remote, it works beautifully because you set up your systems to work remotely and, connect. I think for when we're still working in a remote environment, even today, I think some tips are just, sometimes just don't be afraid to reach out to your team and just say hi. Because what we're missing is kind of that water cooler talk, right? Like, where you just have that banter and that chit chat. And we're all really striving for so much productivity now. Sometimes it just won't occur to just reach out. And, if you saw something funny that reminds you of that person, or just those mini points of connection throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, just let people know, like, I see you, I hear you, I appreciate you, and we're still connected.
Danielle, it's so interesting that you talk about that, because it really leads into my next question. Entrepreneurs come from a whole myriad of backgrounds, educationally, experience-wise, all of that. But I think many have not necessarily, unless it was their main thing, have a communication background. They aren't necessarily wired to communicate well. And I think people get in their head, I talk to people all the time, but it's different, right? It's different when you're dealing with employees and partners and investors and all of that. I got to believe that communication style and skills are a major part of what you do. Can you share?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think part of everything that I'm doing is teaching people how to talk to each other. And I kind of, at the beginning, when you mentioned it's so simple, but it's so hard. And I think, just as advice, like, even if you think you're good at communication, I think one of the best leaders that I work with, will have me come and just observe meetings sometimes that, as a CEO of a company that they're leading, and then just give that really direct feedback. So I'll have my Zoom camera off. They're leading meetings with their team. It could be board of directors, could be their team, and just have that unbiased party that knows what you're trying to achieve, give you feedback on, how are you showing up with your team? Does it align with what I've told you I want? What are you noticing from, the reactions of my team? And just having that kind of light shined on what you might not see, I think, is super impactful. And it could be a coach, it could be, another team member that you really trust that you're asking to give you that feedback. But I think at a CEO level, a lot of times they're wanting maybe more of an external person to do that.
Danielle, thanks. What was interesting, Michelle, I'll just say this before we go to break, is I think it's fascinating now that what Danielle said is, I'm going to show up to a meeting on Zoom. camera off. I mean, that in the old days, so you'd have to jump on a plane or get in your car and go attend a meeting and maybe hide behind a curtain. I don't know, but how far we've come and how effective I think that is. That's fantastic. Well, what is also fantastic is thanking our sponsor. We're going to do that right now with a short break. When we come back with our guest, Danielle Johnson, for our famous Plead the Fifth section of the show, we are going to put her in the DeLorean. We're going to go back in time and we're going to talk a little bit about a few years and Back to the Future. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank. And Plead the Fifth is brought to you by our wonderful corporate sponsors, Ideal Life 360, Cornerstone Financial, First Underwriters Insurance, BC Fitness Studio, Port Ludlow Resort, and Upstart Group. Please visit our website at www.shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle to learn more about these terrific companies. Now back to the show.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound area and beyond. I'm Michelle Bomberger here with Dan Weedin and with Danielle Johnson. We're going to kick off our next segment, Plead the Fifth.
All right, Danielle, we're gonna turn up the heat a little bit. We're gonna ask you some tough questions, maybe some fun questions. You get to plead the fifth once if you want, but only once. And after that, the gloves proverbially come off or metaphorically come off. I said we're going to put you in the DeLorean. We're going to send you back to when you were 18 years old. You're graduating from high school. If you could go back in time without messing up the time continuum or anything, we don't want to do that. We don't want to have you disappear. What we do want to do is know what you would tell 18-year-old graduating from high school Danielle for advice.
Oh my gosh, this one's an easy one. It's not, no one has it all figured out. I think I would look around and think that everyone had everything figured out. And if I could just tell her that one thing, like, even at 45, you're not going to have it all figured out. And it's okay. It's okay to experiment. It's okay to try different things until you find what you love.
Thanks. So can you share the best book of any genre that you've read recently and what was so impactful about it?
Yes. It would probably, I love reading. And so whenever people ask me the best, I'm like, Rob, but this and that, it would be anything by Brene Brown. I mean, she's definitely a thought leader that I really look to. And I think what I appreciate about her is how much she brings in empathy and vulnerability into everything that we do.
All right, I'm going to ask you to be vulnerable now. Go figure on Plead the Fifth. I'm going to ask this. Now, I know you love what you do. I know it. I can tell. But I'm going to make you start a new business based on a hobby. What's the hobby? What's the business?
So the first thing that came to mind when you said a hobby was drinking wine. I'm not sure what that says about me. I would probably start.
We've had people do that. So don't stop there. Go with that feeling.
I would probably start a really cute little hotel, like boutique hotel that had amazing wine selections in the lobby 24 hours a day.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
I can totally see that, by the way.
Thank you. My next life.
So you mentioned mentors earlier. Who has been the most influential person in your career journey?
Oh gosh, I've had a lot. I think back to, I'm trying to think about when I was it had to be almost 20 years ago. I had a boss at Starbucks that has continued to be a part of my life at this point. And I had never seen with my own eyes, like, what an exceptional leader looked like. And the way that he could motivate people and get people excited. And there was no doubt from day one that he thought I could do more than I thought I could do. And, he married my husband and I, which is amazing. And I'm just grateful that he's still part of my life. But I I think it's just the reason it's so impactful is because I'm the first person that I knew truly saw kind of the future, and where I was going, and was willing to invest the time to help me get there. Not that I didn't have great parents and all that, but that was really my mentor.
You know, it's funny as you're answering that, I realized when you answered, you know, having a little wine thing, and bartenders, and let's say wine tenders, they're coaches. They talk to people. So I could absolutely, it just dawned on me that fits your style perfectly. All right. It's been said that we can all be our own worst critics. And a lot of times entrepreneurs will leave one boss for a worse boss themselves because they can be their own worst critics. Tell us something, you know, 3 years into being an entrepreneur, the things that you still struggle with.
Oh gosh. There's a lot. I think that probably the biggest thing is kind of stepping into that space of being a thought leader. Because, you know, kind of like you mentioned, everyone is a thought leader, and it's hard to get out of that. Like, okay, why? I never want to speak unless I feel like it has impact, and I don't want to just put things out to put them out. And so it's finding that fine line between perfectionism and being a healthy striver, and really kind of wanting to get to that next level. And so one day maybe I won't struggle with that, but I think as long as we can keep that voice down, there's a motivating factor there as well.
I don't think we hit on your rock star story. Who's your rock star? The person that you would, you know, your Taylor Swift, let's say.
Can I have 4?
You can.
I've had my a very close group of girlfriends that I've met, you know, from the time I was 5 until the time I was about 20. And I do not know what I would do. I am so grateful for this community that I've built, because there's nothing like unjudgmental women supporting women that know where the bodies are buried. They know everything, and they love you, and they're your biggest fans. And I am just so very grateful for that group of women, and I wish that for everyone.
All right, one final question here.
Yeah.
What is your reaction to the word impossible?
The second you said that word, I wanted to say that's not a thing. I mean, okay, is it impossible for me to be president right now, you know, in this lifetime? It's really, really unlikely. But I think if anything we think is, if you think it is, and I prefer to live in a place of possibility.
Oh, I love that as a closing statement. So I just really enjoyed our conversation today. It has been great having you here on the show. For our guests and listeners who want to get in touch with you or learn more about Canon Leadership, how can they get more information?
Absolutely. My website, canonleadership.com. Find me on LinkedIn, Danielle Johnson, or under Canon Leadership. And yeah.
Fantastic. And for our listeners, make sure you check out all the replays at shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle or wherever you get your podcasts, Google, Spotify, SoundCloud. And please follow us on our show's social media pages on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
All right. Well, first of all, I'm not going to let you get away with this, Danielle. Michelle and I both tried. Who's your musical rock star? Who is the musical rock star for you?
Oh God. Okay. I have such a wide variety of music and taste, and
You got
I
to pick one.
cannot
Pick one for
pick
me.
one. This is the hardest question in the entire world. I love Adele.
Okay.
I really love Adele.
We got
There
it.
we go.
We got it out of her, Michelle.
Okay.
We
You did.
finally pried it out of it. First of all, Danielle, thanks for being with us. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed having you. Michelle, as always, and I think we're probably back on a regular routine now. So I'll probably see you kind-ish. It's the summer months-ish. I know I'll see you at the end of August As always, great to see you. Everyone do exactly as Michelle said, like us on our Facebook page, because then you can live stream us, just like what we're doing right now. We live stream every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Pacific. Our next show will be Wednesday, August 2nd. Our co-host for the show will be Craig Swanson. In the meantime, be safe, be well, and be prosperous, because until next week, the shrimp is back in the tank. So long.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond, and the shrimp